Welcome to Spiritual Calisthenics. Christ is in our midst. On July 7th, we commemorate St. Thomas the Righteous of Malea, St. Kyriake the Great Martyr, St. Akakios of Sinai, and St. Willibald, Bishop of Eichstatt. Regarding St. Thomas the Righteous of Malea. St. Thomas, though wealthy in material goods, though illustrious for the military trophies he had won in wars against the barbarians, forsook all that he had that he might gain Christ, and was led by a pillar of fire to Mount Malea. By divine grace he wrought wonders, cast out demons, gave sight to the blind, caused springs of water to gush forth, healed many, and while in prayer appeared as a pillar of fire. The century in which he lived is not known. The image of God was faithfully preserved in you, O Father, for you took up the cross and followed Christ. By your actions you taught us to look beyond the flesh where it passes, rather to be concerned about the soul which is immortal. Wherefore, Holy Thomas, your soul rejoices with the angels. Leaving the army that is earthly and corruptible, you did ascend to the mountain of unceasing prayer, joining battle with the spirits of nether darkness. And since you did overcome your fleshless enemies, you brought your eternal King in victory. Hence we cry to you, rejoice, O Thomas of godly mind. Regarding St. Kyriake the Great Martyr. There was a devout Christian couple named Dorotheos and Eusebia, who were wealthy and philanthropic, yet had neither son nor daughter, which was a cause of grief for them. After supplicating God to grant them offspring, Eusebia conceived and gave birth to a daughter on a Sunday, which is the Lord's Day, hence her given name at holy baptism was Kyriake. From a young age she was modest and mature beyond her age, neither participating in the disorderly games of her peers or participating in their gossip, but she greatly revered her parents and attended to them. The more she aged, the more she grew in wisdom, knowledge, and beauty, both physically and spiritually. She was not interested in costly clothes, secular music, or dancing, preferring to live an ecclesiastical life and listen to the lives of the saints. Though she was attractive, she did not parade her beauty or adorn herself in any way to enhance it. Rather, she arrayed her soul with fasting, discipline, silence, prayer, guarding her eyes and restraining her tongue. And although many handsome young men sought her hand in marriage, Kyriake desired to preserve her virginity and devote all her life and love to Christ. When her parents tried to persuade her to get married to bequeath to her all they possessed, she answered among other things, I desire to become a bride of my Christ and God. What would marriage profit? What woman has ever married and not regretted it? Who became a mother and has not grieved? Sorrow and distress out of necessity is most felt at the loss of one's child, husband, or relative. Yet virginity has no sorrow, neither many cares. Therefore, my parents, why would you submit me to such cares and anxieties? In those days, there was a wealthy magistrate who lived in the same city of Anatolia as Kyriake, who saw her to be young and beautiful, also wealthy. Because he desired her wealth, he decided to betroth her to his son. With this hidden motive in mind, he came to an agreement with her parents for their children to be brought together. Because, however, Kyriake had consecrated both soul and body to God, she replied, I am a pure bride of my Christ, and I desire to die a virgin. This very much angered the magistrate. The magistrate went straightway to Emperor Diocletian, who accused Kyriake of mocking the pagan god and disdaining his authority. He therefore asked the emperor to have her and her parents sacrificed to the idols to show their loyalty to his rule. This news angered Diocletian, who ordered soldiers to bring Kyriake and her parents before him. Dorotheos was first questioned as to why he forsook the worship of his ancestral gods, but he answered that his ancestors were Christians, who taught him to worship the true God, while all the idols are depictions of false gods. For this, Diocletian ordered Dorotheos to be spread on the ground and thrashed until he either submitted to sacrificing to the gods or died from the beatings. During this beating, strengthened by Christ, Dorotheos derided and sneered at the idols as deaf and senseless objects. Seeing that Dorotheos would not submit by stripes nor be persuaded by flattery, he sent both Dorotheos and Eusebia to the city of Meladini, where a man named Justus tortured them without pity and in a savage manner. Unable to persuade them to abandon Christ, he struck off their heads with a sword, thus ending their earthly sojourn. Meanwhile, Kyriake was sent to be interrogated by his son-in-law of Diocletian named Maximian. In Nicomedia, marveling at her beauty, he tried to persuade her through flattery to abandon her beliefs and venerate the gods, even proposing that he would have her betrothed to a relative of his. To this Kyriake answered, "Do not think, O king, by these flatteries or by frightening punishments that I shall deny my sweetest Jesus Christ. For there is no torment, no punishment, and no torture which can separate me from his love. Though you would give me other riches with my patrimony, or even if you were to give me your earthly kingdom, it would be impossible for me to renounce the piety of my fathers. Moreover, I cannot consent to marry, for I prefer none other than to my Christ, to whom I have given myself, so I may live and die a virgin." Enraged by this, Maximian ordered her hands and feet tied so that she would be lashed with bullwhips till she either renounced Christ or died. Hoping she would grow timid, the emperor sat and waited, but the young maiden voluntarily dropped to the ground and took the pitiless flogging. She endured to the point that the executioners had to be changed 2 or 3 times. Despite this, the countenance of Kyriake radiated, strengthened by Christ. Having shamed the emperor, he decided to send her to the eparch of Bithynia named Hilaria in Chalcedon, who was reputed to have the temperament of a wild beast. His goal was to appear ferocious to the Christians, and by terrorizing them, gain the favor not only of the gods, but of all the governors of the realm. When Kyriake was presented to Hilarion, he flattered her and threatened her with harsh torments in order for her to change or die. Kyriake responded, "If Emperors Diocletian and Maximian were unable to conquer the power of Christ, how will you be able to overcome me? Therefore do not labor in vain with such works, but test me with deeds to behold the power of my Christ." Accepting this challenge, she was ordered to be raised aloft from the hairs of her head, where she remained suspended for many hours. They also burnt her flesh with lit torches. Yet Kyriake endured all of this courageously. Therefore Hilarion ordered her to be taken down and brought to prison. That night, Christ appeared in her cell, saying, "Fear not, O Kyriake, the tortures for my grace shall be with you, and shall deliver you from every temptation." With this, Christ healed her wounds and vanished. The next day, when the soldiers brought Kyriake to Hilarion, he marveled at her complete restoration, thinking the gods must love her, and pitied her beauty. Therefore he tried to persuade her to sacrifice to the gods, to give them thanks. To this, Kyriake answered, "It is not your gods, Hilarion, who have restored me, but my Christ, the true God, whom I believe in and worship. Nevertheless, since you wish to enter the temple of your gods, let us be off, and behold which gods you say you worship." Thinking the young maiden penitent, Hilarion rejoiced as they went to the temple. And when they entered the temple and he saw her bent on her knees to pray, a great earthquake occurred, causing the idols of the temple to fall, for she had prayed to Christ to show his power. Instead of Hilarion repenting before this display of the power of Christ before false gods, he blasphemed more strongly. Suddenly, a flash of lightning struck Hilarion in the face and burned him, which caused him to fall and expire. With the death of Hilarion, Apollonius became the eparch of Bithynia. In time, he also tried to persuade young Kyriake through flatteries and threats. But Kyriake once again confessed Christ with boldness and railed against the idols. For this, Apollonius ordered Kyriake to be cast into a great fire. After the great fire was prepared, Kyriake was thrown in it. But just as God preserved the 3 youths in the Babylonian furnace from Daniel, chapter 3, 21-25, Kyriake stood in the midst of the flames, praying, and a cloud appeared in the cloudless sky, giving off a downpour that quenched the fire. When Apollonius saw that Kyriake was not harmed by the fire, he sent 2 hungry lions after her while she stood before the council. However, as God tamed the lions in the Babylonian den so as to not devour Daniel, God also guarded his handmaiden. Though they burst out at her in a wild manner, they became tame as lambs at her feet, rolling and playing. Because of this, many spectators believed in Christ. Enraged by this, Apollonius ordered them to either be slain with a sword or cast into the sea. Kyriake, meanwhile, was thrown into the dungeon. The next day, after once again failing in flattery and threatening Kyriake, Apollonius sentenced her to death by the sword. Taken outside the city by soldiers to be beheaded, Kyriake first asked to say a prayer, during which she surrendered her soul to God. This astonished the executioners and bystanders, who went and announced the wondrous death of Kyriake to Apollonius. Meanwhile, certain Christians went and recovered the body of Kyriake to bury her in an honorable manner. This took place in the year 289. You did prove an auspicious and pleasing sacrifice, O holy offering, a valiant prize winner, Kyriake, when you brought your Creator your own spotless soul, which Christ in turn has glorified. For through you he pours forth divine gifts, and endless graces upon the faithful who praise you, since he is the lover of mankind. The martyr of Christ has called us all together now to praise and acclaim her wrestlings and her godly feats. For possessed of bravery of mind, she has proved worthy of her name, being a lady and mistress of her mind and the passions of unseemliness. To all who celebrate today, all the Kyriakos and all the Kyriakes, Chronia Pola. St. Paul's letter to the Galatians. Brethren, before faith came, we were confined under the law, kept under restraint, until faith should be revealed. So that the law was our custodian until Christ came, that we might be justified by faith. But now that faith has come, we are no longer under a custodian. For in Christ Jesus you are all sons of God through faith. For as many as of you were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female. For you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to the promise. I mean, that the heir, as long as he's a child, is no better than a slave, though he is owner of the estate, but he's under guardians and trustees until the date set by the father. So with us, when we were children, we were slaves to the elemental spirits of the universe. So in other words, all of the ways that all the people tested Kyriake, they were like children, slaves to the elemental spirits, thinking that that's how the world works. But when the time had fully come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. So now that Christ has come, the wisdom that we see evidenced by Kyriake is free for all. The Gospel according to St. Mark. At that time, a great crowd followed Jesus and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus, came up behind him in the crowd, and touched his garment. For she said, if I touch even his garments, I shall be made well. And immediately the hemorrhage ceased, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone forth from him, immediately turned in the crowd and said, who touched my garments? And his disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing around you, and did you say, who touched me? And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had been done to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. He said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. So this gospel passage that is used for the majority of women saints is not because it is about an issue of womanly things and the blood and the hemorrhaging, rather showing forth this woman of great faith, because her faith was so great that she thought, all I need to do is touch his garment. If I just touch his garment, I will be made well. And that faith is echoed in churches today as we see women and men reach out during the great entrance and touch the phalonion, the cape-like garment of the priest, as he passes during the great entrance when he's bringing the gifts into the altar. I hope that you've enjoyed today's spiritual calisthenics. Have a blessed and wonderful day.